And now, Fastened Like Nails with Dr. Mark Hamby.
Welcome back to Fastened Like Nails, and today's going to be a special day because we've got over to my left, Molly Mayo. Molly, welcome, Molly. And to Molly's left, John Fornof. John, welcome.
Thank you. Great
and
to be
to
here.
my right, we have one and only Phil Lollar. Phil, welcome.
Thank you very much.
You are the
Pleasure
one
to be
and only,
here. I think, well, I don't know. I think there may be another one out there.
Is it really?
I think so.
Okay.
I keep getting his emails. If you're that other Phil Lollar,
Yeah.
you got a weird life, but you need to find Jesus.
Oh, no.
Okay, so I thought we'd try something kind of unique today. So we've got 3 script writers here. And I'm a potential script writer. I like to dabble with it. I learned from you guys. But as we write script, we know this script is king, right? And so, there's a lot of imagination that goes into writing a script. Phil, you helped with Adventures in Odyssey and Jungle Jam and Friends. And, that takes a lot of imagination. I don't know what it is about Jungle Jam and Friends, but I would dare say the majority of your listeners are adults.
Oh, yeah, I think so, probably.
Yeah.
Try to put stuff in there for everybody.
Yep.
Yeah, we're kids at heart, right? We just enjoy listening to the themes behind it, what you're teaching behind it. Like yesterday, you were sharing something that was dealing with where people weren't speaking up. Mm-hmm. Was that the one you were talking about? People weren't, in one of your Jungle Jam and Friends, people weren't speaking up and taking a stand on something.
Yeah. Well, it was, we did a spoof on, I think it was Martin Niemöller, who in the World War II said, made the famous quote, first they came for the first they came for the socialists, and I said nothing because I was not a socialist, and then they came for the trade unionists, and I said nothing because I was not a trade unionist, and then they came for the Jews, and I said nothing because I was not a Jew, and then they came for me, and nobody was left to speak up. And so it's a very, very powerful statement, and he was talking about, of course, all of the citizens in Germany, but also a lot of the clergy in Germany that was not speaking out against the Nazi atrocities at that point. So in Jungle Jam, we, and this was totally by, us being goofy and weird, and that is, we had a character called Racket the Skunk, and he decided that he wanted to be king of the jungle, and so he, and then everybody was just sort of giving in to Racket all the way along. And Racket's sort of this Australian kind of guy, and he decides he's making all sorts of arbitrary rules, all these strange and arbitrary rules about things. And then he makes a rule about Jean-Claude the Flying Squirrel not saying ooh la la anymore. And he makes a rule about Gruffy the elephant who just takes up too much room. We're just going to have to go. And Gruffy Bear, you can't do this and you can't do that and whatnot. And then he says, Millard, we better watch out for you because you just eat too many bananas. And for some reason in the writing session, I said, first they came for the squirrels, and I said nothing because I was not a squirrel. And we all just fell over laughing because we all knew that phrase. And then it was Parker was like, oh, come on, you got to keep going. You said, what's next? And then they came for the aardvarks, and I said nothing because I was not an aardvark, which is not a bad thing when you think about it. So, and then they came for the elephants, and I said nothing because I was not an elephant. And then they came for me, and there was nobody left to speak up. And then we hear crickets. I said there was nobody else left to speak up. Thanks a lot, guys.
Oh, that's creative.
That's powerful.
You know what? The lesson there for me is that you as a writer, you need to be well-read. You need to understand history. Writing is not just writing. In part, is a lot about inspiration and having fun and all this stuff. But writing is also a lot of copious research. Just knowing, so that way you get the cultural references, you get the historic and cultural references, and you can bring them to bear in your own writing whenever possible.
It's regurgitation.
It's not just regurgitation. It's not just that.
Yeah.
It's adaptation. It's adapting things. It's saying, we know this. We have these common cultural things that we know. We understand each other in our culture, and so we need to be able to use them. And we need to be, especially something really good, really strong, and really powerful. We need to be able to adapt them in our own scripts, in our own creativity, so that way we are passing those words of wisdom on to people who need them and in the next generation.
Okay, so
speaking of words of wisdom,
I'd like to try something unique. We've never done this on a podcast before. So, this team here is so highly imaginative. I wonder what it would take for me to read a certain scripture in the Bible and for all of us to come up with a storyline. And maybe we talk about this story. Maybe we even act it out while we're here. So here's the scripture. It's in Proverbs chapter 26. No, as you know, we rehearsed this ahead of time.
Yes, extensively. Yes.
And the scripture that I told you we were going to be doing is not the one that we're doing. So this is a different one. So here it is.
Oh, great. I'm already thinking of the pig. What are we going to do with the pig?
He's pulled a fast one on us. He's pulled a fast one on us.
It was already spontaneous.
John's been thinking over there the whole time what he's going to say. The pig snout, the ring in a pig snout. How do we make this work? Okay, so here it is. It's in Proverbs 26, verse 16. It says, the sluggard is wiser in his own eyes than 7 men who can answer sensibly. Whoever meddles in a quarrel that is not his own is like one who takes a passing dog by the ears. Like a madman who throws firebrands and arrows and death is the man who deceives his neighbor and says, I'm only joking. So, and then it says, lastly, it says, for the lack of wood, the fire goes out, and where there is no whisperer, quarrels cease. So let me just read it again. So there's a lot in here, and we could take just one part of it, or we could take it all. So it starts off with the lazy person. He's wiser than anyone in his own eyes. Then 7 men who can give an answer sensibly. So the foolish, lazy person thinks he knows everything. He's wise in his own eyes. The next one is, whoever meddles in a quarrel that is not his own is like one who takes a passing dog by the ears, or better, by a barking dog. Okay, so did you guys know that if you take a dog by the ears, he can't bite you?
What?
Yeah.
I got to remember that.
I've never tried that.
Wow.
There's only one problem.
Can't let him go.
You can't let him go. So if you get involved in someone else's issues, they become your own. You could never let it go. So don't get involved in other people's issues.
Can you grab him by the ears or what?
Yeah. Okay. Well, you can do that if you want.
This is what Thomas Jefferson said about slavery.
What
Slavery is like a ravenous wolf. You grab him by the ears and you can control it, but you dare not let it go.
That's cool. Wow.
That was a problem. So again, cultural references. These guys knew all of them. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I like that.
So we got the sluggard, who's wise in his own eyes, right? What else now? We got the ravenous wolf.
The meddling person. Meddling person who's getting involved in situations that are not his own.
Sluggard, the meddler.
Yep. And then like a madman who throws firebrands and arrows and death is the man who deceives his neighbor and says, I'm only joking. So this is a guy who's kind of always like mocking and joking around, giving little innuendos, a little bit of truth in his jesting. It shows what he's really like and what he's really thinking about. But he's like, even though he offends people, he's like, I was only joking, get over it.
So he's more joker or deceiver? Which would you say? He's more the joker, I'm thinking?
I would say more the deceiver.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, I think because there's truth in jesting. And then at the very end, for the lack of wood, the fire goes out. For where there is no whisperer, quarreling ceases. Okay, so...
Where there is no whisperer, the quarreling ceases.
Yeah, so someone that's always like talking behind people's backs, starting trouble. So if you get the person who's the whisperer out, and like you stop that. The person that's always gossiping and talebearing behind the scenes, if you get them out of the group, then the conflict is going to cease.
Are these 4 verses connected or are they individual?
They're about to be.
I think that's up to us.
Yeah, I would say they're always connected. I mean, up just above that, it talks about a different sluggard, and it says, the sluggard says, there's a lion outside. I can't go out and work, There's a lion in the streets. As a door turns on the hinges, so a sluggard turns on his bed. A sluggard buries his head in the dish. It wears him out to bring back to his mouth. Wears him out to bring his game that he just caught even to his mouth. So let's look at those 4. So there's 4. What's interesting is that it starts off with a dog, like a dog that returns to his vomit. A fool repeats his folly. And it ends with a dog holding the ears of a dog. In between, it's got sluggard, 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 sluggard. So the centerpiece of this is the sluggard. So here's the first sluggard. He says there's a lion outside. There's a lion in the streets. Okay, so he doesn't want to go out. He's always got excuses of why he can't do something. And then as a door turns on the hinges, so a sluggard turns on his bed. So this is the person that's like, I'll sleep another hour. If I could just sleep a little. And next thing you know, he sleeps and sleeps and sleeps. And he loses the best parts of the day. What I love about the Lamplighter Guild, my favorite part is that 6 o'clock in the morning devotion. It's just really amazing to get up that early and experience God. And then the sluggard buries his hand in the dish. It wears him out to bring it back to his mouth. This is the guy that doesn't want to get up and get the salt and pepper. He doesn't want to clean it. I mean, if you catch a fish at the river and you bring it home, by the time you get home, it's late, right? But you, down by the river, you catch the fish. You're like, oh, look at this fish I caught. I'm going to bring it home and eat it. And now you get it home, and you're like, oh, I got to scale it. I've got to cut it and gut it. Oh, I don't have a sharp enough knife. And then the scales, you start scaling it, and the scales they go backwards into your face. And you're like, oh, this is not worth it. And then you got to get in the house, and you got to put the oil in the frying pan and the butter. You got to cook the thing, an hour's gone by at least. And so a lot of people, they don't even cook what they've caught. And he's just like, I don't even want to do this. And next thing you know, it's spoiled. He doesn't get to eat it. So, and then lastly, the sluggard is wise in his own eyes. 7 men who can give an answer sensibly. He thinks he's wiser than them. And then it goes on, whoever meddles in the affairs of another. Okay, so based on those 4 sluggards, what kind of story would we create out of the sluggardness of these 4 people?
Okay, so the first thing I noticed is the last verse that you read says what? The very last one.
The very last one of the sluggard, or after that?
The very last one.
Whoever meddles in meddles.
No, that's the next.
The sluggard is wiser in his own eyes than 7 men.
Next one.
Is the man who deceives his neighbor and says, I will
Nope, the next one.
Like a madman who throws firebrands, arrows, and death?
Nope, no, I went after that. You ended with a different one. Before, in the very first time when you read through. Keep going down.
The
one that puts out...
Where there's no wood,
where there's no wood, the fire goes out.
Yeah.
There's our theme. There's our theme and climax.
Okay.
Okay.
Why is that?
Because the fire has gone out. All the bad stuff has gone out. Nobody's throwing wood on the terrible fire anymore, right?
Okay.
So we need to have somebody who is going to stop the sluggard and the liar and the dog and the wolf. All of those bad guys are up above. The sluggard's doing this thing. The meddlesome person is doing this thing. The liar's doing this thing, and they're all throwing wood on the fire. But the proverb says there, if you stop throwing wood on the malicious fire goes out.
Oh.
It goes out. Didn't you notice that connection?
Watch this.
Don't be doing that. Don't be throwing fire on the wood on the fire. And all those guys are doing nothing but throwing wood on the fire. And it's making it worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. But now, if you stop throwing wood on the fire,
okay. In what sense are they throwing wood on the fire? What are they doing?
Because they're doing what they do. The sluggard is being more sluggard. Look at the progression of the sluggard. The sluggard doesn't want to get up in the morning. The sluggard doesn't want to make his meal. The sluggard says there's something going on out in the street. Somebody else go take care of it. The sluggard's doing this. Sluggard's doing that. Then you've got the deceptive person who goes, oh, you're just an idiot. I'm just joking. You're a bad guy. I'm just joking. He makes all this. I'm just joking. Well, all of those things, the fire is a metaphor for all of those things. All of those things are getting worse and worse and worse and making the society worse and worse and worse. And then you have, what else was the meddler, somebody who comes in and butts his nose into everybody else's business. And all of a sudden the things are getting worse there too. He butts his nose in between the sluggard and the liar. And all of a sudden we have the ravenous dogs come along. So the dogs and the fire and the wood, these are all metaphors. These are all metaphors for what we do to make in our own lives to make situations worse. The situation is getting worse. So I would say that our dramatic situation, is probably going to be in a house with a fireplace, or at a campsite with a fireplace, or in a gazebo that has a nice fire pit in it. And then when we throw wood on the fire, what happens? Well, a little bit of wood is fine. It's nice for heat, and it's nice but all of a sudden, now it's getting worse. It's getting worse. It's getting worse. So let's not put it in a place we want to be. Let's put it in a place we don't want to burn down.
Oh, a house would be a great place.
A house or a great forest.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay, something like that. A beautiful, beautiful forest and everything. And we don't. And all we want to do is just have peace. But all of a sudden, who comes? The sluggard comes. The sluggard comes. The deceitful person comes. Okay, the meddlesome person comes, and suddenly one of them strikes a fire. And then the fire grows bigger, and the fire grows bigger, and the fire grows bigger, and the fire grows bigger. But our hero has to come along and say, stop putting wood on the fire.
So the fire isn't the bad thing to begin with. It's that when it's maximized.
I don't know. You tell me.
Well, it's interesting because I was trying to think about like if that's the tension, maybe it's a fire that's not supposed to be there, or I mean, because fire in itself is not a bad thing, but if it's used as a metaphor, like a lion, God is described as a lion, and Satan's also described as a lion. So I wonder if maybe there's a community, there's a fellowship, but then the fire is in a place where it shouldn't be. That would be
okay.
Maybe
All right, that's fine. I don't know how you would connect those things to like bad actions.
Yeah.
Okay. Because what we're looking is to not throw bad wood on the fire. Maybe that's where our connection is.
That's
we throw
interesting.
good wood on the fire, and good things spring out of the fire. We throw bad wood on the fire, and the fire starts consuming everything.
Okay, so I'm going to do something that's unique. I'm going to keep this on air too. I like this. So, as the executive producer,
Yes.
I'm canning this. And so we're going to move forward in a completely different direction. So I mean that's part of the process, right?
Yes.
Sure.
I mean, how many times have you come across writing something or being involved in directing or
This
something?
week.
And it didn't work. Right?
This past week.
When was the last?
Let's see. When was the last time? Let's see. How about 2 days ago? Yesterday.
So last year we had a young man write something about cupcakes and what was that about? The
What are you talking about?
the peach cobbler.
Oh yeah, the
Okay.
cobbler's
Okay.
So the cobbler, that was a hit. It was like amazing.
year.
Oh, yeah.
Best thing
Yeah.
ever produced here at Lamplighter Guild.
Yeah.
Very good.
This year, it didn't turn out so
Didn't
well.
turn out so well.
You know,
Didn't turn out
and
so
I
well.
was just waiting. He was the star for me.
I know.
I couldn't wait. And you,
Very interesting that you bring him up, because yesterday I did talk to him, because he was, I know he was feeling really, not happy about this. And what we did differently this year is we had far more people than we had in the previous year. So
Yeah, there were a lot of
everybody,
people.
that we had to break
Right.
up into groups, and we had to learn a lesson about collaboration too, about the collaborative process, and that you always don't get all of your ideas, and that somebody's got to take control, and we got to get things moving forward. We got to get things moving forward. And so this is a great lesson for them. But I told him, because he had come up to me at the beginning of the week, and he said, "You know what, Mr. Lollar, I just have to tell you that because of what happened at the last time that you were here at the Guild and that you did that, but we did that whole thing, I've decided to become a writer. I've decided to be a writer." And I said, "Okay, let me tell you, it's really great. That's really wonderful. Let me tell you what the life is like." And so I told him what the life is like. This is what the life is. You got to expect this.
well, tell us what the
Well, the life is like. The life is hard.
Days,
The life is hard. You're by yourself most of the time when you're writing. You're by yourself, and you don't get any kind of feedback whatsoever. And a lot of people think, "Oh, that's wonderful. That's great. That's wonderful." But you know what? That's not always wonderful. It's really kind of hard. And everything depends on you. You've got to put stuff there. You got a blank page or a blank computer screen in front of you, and you got to fill it with something. And you want to fill it with something really, really good. And you want to fill it with something that the person you're writing for, the client you're writing for, the executive producer, for instance, who just canned this whole project. You want to fill it with what he wants or she wants, but by the same token, you also want to fill it with what you believe that you want to say, what you believe that you're tasked
That's
to
collaboration.
say. So that's part of the life. But then the other thing on a practical level, on a real just basic practical level, is you can make a lot of money when you sell a story. And then you don't sell another one for 6 years. Okay? You're working hard. You're doing whatever. You're doing great. You're doing fantastic. This is really good. And I really still love the life. But guess what? You got to eat. You got a mortgage to pay. You got a car payment. You got a family to support. So I don't know of any writer that I have ever worked with that stayed just, that supported themselves just with writing for their whole career.
Well, so
including me.
Okay, but my book, we've not been able to keep it on the shelves.
Sure,
That's been, right?
That's fantastic, and that's great. That's really wonderful.
Molly, you were about to say something?
Are you talking about the book that you're writing right now?
Uh-huh.
Oh, yeah.
That's why we can't keep it on the shelves. It hasn't been on the shelf yet.
Well, I think that is just a discipline. Like, we've been so busy with other things.
Yeah.
We've not given it any time.
I can't finish my book.
I know.
What's it on, Mark?
It's hard. It's hard.
It's called Hidden Insight, and I've been working on it for 2 years. I mean, it's already written, but I just can't get it done.
Yeah.
We've been too busy doing the summer guild.
But you see, that's the point. I mean, this is the point. So people who want to go into writing thinking I can make a living doing this. Well, yeah, there are lots of ways. Sure. So you can be a stringer. John was a journalism guy. You can be a stringer for a newspaper, a news source, things like that. Or you can write commercial copy, which is why we had kid. Well, I had them writing commercial 30-second spots so they get an idea about that. If you can get the clients, but then it's part of getting the clients and bringing stuff in and doing stuff, and you can do that. And some people make a living for a time doing just that, but then things dry up. And then the clients don't want stuff anymore. Or you've already done 10 commercials for them, and we'll just reuse those.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, now what? Well, I got to go out and find more clients, but sometimes they're not. So you have to have other skills as well. So for me, I chose teaching. So I went and got the degrees and everything. I didn't want to teach younger kids. I do teach younger kids here at the camp, but I really wanted to teach university level. So you need a Master of Fine Arts degree in order to be able to do that. So I went back to school, got all that stuff so I could do that. All right? So that's part of the life too. This is the lesson for this young man. This was the lesson for this young man. Mr. Lollar, I want to be a writer. Because of what happened last time, I've decided this is what I want to do. This is it. And this time, he didn't get a project going. He didn't get one going. He was the star, like you said. He was the star last time. Everybody loved his stuff. And it was great. It was one of the best things we've ever done. Wow, for students. Wow, that's fantastic. This time, he had nothing.
Wow.
He got nothing.
Wow.
And he was very disappointed. And so I said, I just want to give you a single word. This is a very important life lesson for you as a writer, because this is what you're going to face. This is the life. You just got it.
Yep.
There's a famous sculptor in Japan, and everyone that knows who this man is wants to at least watch him for 1 hour. Just watch the master sculptor. And there was a woman from California, from the Santa Barbara area, and it was her life's dream to be able to go and sit under his tutelage. She wrote letter after letter after letter, year after year after year. Finally, she got an invitation to come and visit him. When she finally got there, his servant picked her up at the airport, brought her to his house. He had an added room onto his house where apprentices could go. And she got there. She got up the next morning very early. She was real excited. But the master wasn't at breakfast, and the servant made her breakfast, and she ate. And then the servant gave her a note from the master, and it was he wanted her to read some of these books that he had for her. So she went back to her room, started reading. And she had lunch, and she had dinner, but the master didn't show up at any of the meals. And so the next day came. So she's going to be there for a month. The next day came, and it was the same thing. Read these books, and then the third day came, and this time there were no books to read. And the note was, meditate, think through of what it takes to become a great sculptor.
Yeah.
And so she did that. She did that for a week's time, okay, and no sight of the master yet. Second week, same thing. Third week, same thing. Fourth week, same thing. Not once has she seen the master. Finally, on the last day, she's extremely angry and frustrated, okay? She's had no apprenticeship in the arts, in her sculpting, and it's a letter, an envelope, and on the top of it, it says, read this only after your flight has departed. So she doesn't even want to read it. She's so disgusted. She spent all this money, a month's time, and she had to pay him for the training. She's paid him for this apprenticeship, okay, which was a lot of money. And on the flight back, she finally is like, okay, what does he have to say to me? And she opens the letter, and it says, to be a great sculptor requires patient endurance. You have passed the first test.
There you go. Awesome.
That's great.
Wait, why did it say she passed?
Awesome.
She left.
Patient
She made
endurance.
it there. She got through it.
She got through her month that she was there.
Yeah.
She was mad, but she got through her month.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and she'll have to think it through. Like, okay, maybe she didn't feel like she passed, but she did it.
This is
a great way to
Karate
make money.
Kid.
It's a great way to make money for my classes now. I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't even show up. I'm just like, hey.
Exactly.
Just leave for level 2.
Leave them
level
notes.
2.
Yeah, just leave
level
notes.
2's coming up. Yeah.
Read this, do that, read this. Next morning, just another note. Read this, do that, read this. This is Karate Kid. This is wax on, wax off.
It is.
This is, if you're familiar with that, it was a really interesting story. The kid wants to learn karate, and an old Japanese man says, I'll teach you. That's fine, but here, first you have to wax my car. Wax on and wax off. And he was like, he goes, no, wax on. He showed him a certain way. Wax on, turn your arm this way. Wax off, you turn the arm the opposite way. He goes, okay, all right. So he waxes all of these cars, 12 cars out there. And the sun, wax on, wax off, wax on, wax off. Okay? All right. Next. Okay, all right, I'm here, ready for my karate lesson. Okay, come over here. You build my fence.
Yeah.
For one nail, boom. One nail, boom. One nail, boom. Yeah. And then there's another task after that. There's another task. And finally the kid gets really upset. I've been coming over here and I haven't done anything. I've just done all the work for you. I've just done all of your chores. And the master says, I'm going to hit you. Ha! And he goes, wax on, wax off, wax on, wax off. It's automatic. He's been doing all of these things. And he's all of a sudden learned, that's it. This is it. Don't you understand? Wax on, wax off. That's a karate move. That's you defending yourself. Defending yourself. Boom, boom, whoa, whoa, nail in the hammer. Whoa. All of these things have been karate moves. They've just been tied to mundane chores.
Mm-hmm. I wish you guys could see Phil's hand movements here.
Oh, it's you know, this is the drawback with audio stuff. But it's great. It's such a wonderful lesson, and that's great when you can do that with your apprentices, with your.
Yeah. We do it here
because you have to understand that that's part of the job.
Oh yeah.
Okay, and here's the other thing. Our job as teachers is to get them to love the mundane tasks.
Wow. Wow.
Excellent. Phil, we had an intern come from New York City. He's never touched a tool in his life.
Ha!
He's never touched a shovel in his life, okay? They don't have a place for many shovels in New York City, right? They don't see them at the hardware store. Mm-hmm. And so he gets here. His dad drives him up, and he gets out of the car, and I could see that he's rather, he's never had any calluses on his hands before. And I'm in the garden in the front. We had a garden in the front at that time. Mm. And I'm in there, and I got the shovel in my hand, and he gets out of the car, and his dad gets out too, and I look at him, and he looks at me, and I said, well, what are you waiting for? And he's like, and I get the shovel, and I throw the shovel in the air, and he catches it. And I said, come on, we got digging to do. And his father goes, should I put I said, leave his luggage there. We'll get it later. We'll see ya. His father's digging in the garden for the first time.
Yep.
I had one young man, he were putting these 9-pound bricks. So they're really heavy, right? They used to be the Main Street in Mount Morris.
Oh, that's right. Yes. Yeah.
And I had these guys putting a sidewalk in with these bricks. And it was taking him all day. And so I went over there. I said, you're lazy. And he goes, I beg your pardon? He goes, I am working at a rate that is suitable for getting this job done within a certain amount of time. He's an engineering mind, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I said, well, it may be suitable for you, but it's too slow, and you're working at a snail's pace. I need you to pick up the pace and get this job done. I want you to really get moving now. And he goes, you actually called me lazy. I said, yes, because you've been here for 6 weeks, and I've noticed that you have a lazy bone in your body. You don't do anything quickly. I said, if you read the Bible, there's a word that's called spudeo. Remember that word?
Spudazo.
Spudazo. And it's the word doing it quickly, doing it immediately, getting it done. That's what Jesus did. He didn't waste any time. He got things done. And long story short, at the very end of the internship here during the summer, he looked at me and he goes, I have learned a lesson I will never forget. Today, he is an engineer making 6 digits in his field, highly respected individual, and he works quickly in getting things done.
Oh, that's so good.
There's another story too. Now, I'm around storytellers. You guys inspire me. Okay, so you guys remember seeing the movie? It was a movie and it was a book. I forget the name of it, but you'll remember it when I tell the story. So there's this wealthy father. He dies, and he's got one son. And his son is lazy, he's a spendthrift, and the father has a friend, and the friend is a lawyer. And this is down in Texas. And the father tells the lawyer something behind the scenes that no one knows about yet in the story. And so he has a video of him on. Do you remember seeing the story?
Yes, I remember this. Yeah.
It's something about the gift.
Yes.
The ultimate gift.
Yeah, ultimate gift. Yeah.
So, and I'm probably going to tell the story differently, but so, have you ever heard of the ultimate gift? Oh,
no, I haven't actually.
No.
Okay, this is good. I'm going to tell you guys the story. So, the boy gets down there and he sees his father on video after he's dead. And he says, now, I have my best friend here, lawyer Johnson, and he's going to tell you exactly what you have to do in order to receive all of the inheritance. So, the lawyer says to him, he goes, and and he brings in this gentleman, this big guy from Texas. He's a rancher. And he goes, you're going to go with him, and he's going to tell you what to do. And so he goes with this man, and he takes him on his ranch. And the very first thing he's got to do is put a mile of fencing up. Okay?
Wow.
That's a mile of fencing in Texas, right? And he's got calluses on his hands. He's upset, he's got to go through all this. And he figures like, oh, God, just get this done. I can get the money, And so test number 1 completed. Test number 2, he had to get up early in the morning and to be able to get out to the fields when the man was going to leave. So the first day he gets there, he doesn't get up in time. And the rancher goes out to where the work is. So the kid not only misses breakfast, and they don't feed him, he's got to walk all the way to where it is.
Yeah.
So he learns the lesson very quickly that if you don't get up on time, you're going to miss breakfast and you got to walk to work. So the third day, he messes up again, and he learns another hard lesson. He's got to go through 12 lessons. And after he finishes all of these lessons, he's got to now do something one day where he's got to find somebody to do something good, helpful to somebody, serve somebody. And he's doing, as he learns all these lessons about servanthood, about sacrifice, about hard work, as he learns all these lessons, he gets to the very last lesson where the inheritance is now going to be his, and now the last lesson is, now I want you to give it away.
Yeah. Whoa.
Yeah, and it's like,
Forget
and he's
it.
like,
Yeah.
I want to give it away. This isn't going to be, I don't need this. Yeah. And he starts a, what's it called? A philanthropist. Philanthropist foundation where he starts to give all of his father's money away for good causes.
Wow.
That's cool.
It reminds me of the scripture, show me a man diligent in his work and he'll stand before kings and not before
Obscure men.
Obscure
Exactly.
men.
Yeah.
Men that will use you for their advantage at your disadvantage because you've not reached a high level of excellence and skill and work ethic.
Yeah.
And now you're always working for somebody else.
Yeah.
So God wants us to turn that and become men of wisdom, women of wisdom, that others will want what we have because we reach that high level of excellence.
It's good.
Yep.
Okay, so let's bring this podcast to an end. So all the scriptures, John, you were talking to me earlier this week about your time here at the Lamplighter Guild and how important it was to you. And you said something this morning that I just really bookends. The first time you were here, you said, I didn't want to leave. Share that story.
Yeah, it was the end of the guild. It was several years ago, one of the first guilds, and it was wonderful. It was an amazing week. It was just like a little piece of heaven on earth. And it was the last day, and I came to you, and I was thinking about going back home. It was going through a very tough time at home, a very toxic thing going on. And I came to you, and I said, Mark, I don't want to go back home.
I remember that.
And he said, John, you can't stay here, John. We've already paid you. Go home. No, you're kind. You're kind. You prayed for me. So now, 5 years later, since the last guild, and just being here has been a redemption story. Just being here, there's a whole story beyond that. But I've had an amazing week again at the guild. Just really, truly, deeply enjoyed this time with God and with fellow believers and just learning, and as well as teaching, I'm learning, right? Now it's come to the last day, and I'm ready to go home. And I mean, not heaven, just hasn't been that good.
No, I'm ready to go. You want to come? Go ahead. Let's go. I'm ready. Anytime you're ready, Lord.
I'm ready. I'm ready to go back to my home. I've got a beautiful place. God's redeemed. He's putting me in a beautiful place. I'm ready to go. I've enjoyed my time deeply, and now I'm ready to go back
That's
home.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Molly, what's this week been like for you?
Oh, it's been incredibly challenging and fulfilling at the same time because we've been talking about that. The theme this year was walk in the light as he is in the light and you will have fellowship with one another. And through that, there's been such a sweet spirit of unity with our staff. And we've been praying for this guild for like 2 months now, that when people came here that they would have hearts prepared to receive all that was going to be experienced here. And that was just what we saw, what I felt in my own heart, that the revival would start in my heart, that the revival would start in, Sarah's heart, in your heart, Mark, and all of us staff members first, so that we could just be poured out for those who were coming. And there were so many soft hearts that I personally got to talk to, that my coworkers got to talk to. Like, we all have that little window of opportunity with people that the Lord gives, and it was just so fulfilling. And yeah, it's crazy that it's over. It seems like we prepared for it, and then the week happened, and like you said, John, it's the last day. Like, That's crazy.
I can't believe we're doing a podcast because usually I'm going to sleep for 3 days at the Guild. Okay, so Phil, close us up here. Bring this to a closure to where people that are listening to this and they want to become writers, they want to become filmmakers, they want to become, they want to be actors. Where do they start, Phil? Where's the starting place for them?
The starting place is prayer.
I like that.
Starting, middle, and end, always with prayer. It's understanding. So we'll talk philosophy before we talk practical. We'll talk religio philosophy before we talk practical. It's understanding.
Let me insert something here. John, you were at that meeting. We were at NRB, and a mother broke into the meeting, and it was Fox there, executives from Fox, Warner Brothers, I think it was there, and one other, Disney was there. The mother broke in. The bouncers were taking her out, and she was like, I have a question about my 22-year-old son. And she came in there, and I remember the Fox guy said, let her ask the question. And she came in, and she goes, my son's an amazing, director, and writer, producer, and, he needs a job, but what should be his next steps? What can he do next? And I remember the guy from Disney said, have him study history. And the guy from Warner Brothers, I think it was Warner Brothers, it might have been Paramount. And he said, have him study philosophy. Yeah. And then the guy from Fox goes, have him study theology. And I thought, well, isn't that a great answer?
Interesting. Yeah, interesting. And yes, that's exactly it. So from a standpoint from the more metaphysical standpoint, you need to know that you're a part of a story.
Ooh.
You need to know that you are a story. If you want to write, you have to understand the elements of story. And I would say even if you don't want to write, you have to still understand that you're in a story. So you need to know what these things are. Everybody should know what the foundational elements of story are: plot, character, communication, which is broken up into dialogue and presentation, and theme. Now, I present these things in classes, and we go into a deep dive on all of them. And then I've given lectures and seminars and keynote addresses before where I talk about these things very quickly in passing. And I'll say, now, most of you are wondering, I don't want to be a writer, so why should I know about this stuff? And I'll say, well, that's because you're a walking, talking story. So how's your plot doing? How's your character? Your character doing okay? Are you off model? Are you off model? Are you doing stuff you know your character shouldn't be doing?
Yeah.
How's your dialogue?
That's good.
Your dialogue good? What about your presentation? What are you telling everybody when you're walking down the street? How's your presentation? How about your theme? You got any themes that you're working on these days? And everybody does. And that's what you need to know. That's what everybody needs to know. Everybody needs to think about that themselves. Now, as far as writers themselves are concerned, your mind should constantly be on those things. But those executives we're exactly right.
Yeah.
If you want to be a writer, read history, read philosophy, read theological, great theological works. Read from the church fathers. Read from contemporary good theologians who are beefy in what they do. You need more than just wanting to entertain people. That's where
good.
theme comes in. You need more than that because you have to have something to write about. During COVID, the big thing that everybody was saying is we have to exist. Okay, they weren't saying it in those words, but they were shutting everything down so that we couldn't do anything. We couldn't do anything. And they were doing awful things like not letting people see their dying parents, their dying grandparents, not letting people in to see that. Because you have to exist. We have to preserve the species. What are we preserving it for?
Good question.
What are we preserving it for? Life is about more than mere existence, than just surviving. Okay? A lot more. And that's what writers write about. The lot more, not just existence, but the lot more. So one thing to wrap this whole thing up, Robert Downey Jr., who plays Iron Man, was giving a speech in Hollywood, and Mel Gibson, who we know did The Passion of the Christ and has done a lot of other really good movies, is a man. I always think that Mel Gibson is the perfect personification of King David, because he does everything to the max. He's a guy who really has a good heart. He's very, very creative, and I think he has a really good heart at the core. He has a good heart, but he's a sinful man who falls all the time, just like David was. And yet David was a man after God's own heart. I was telling John this morning, think about David. Think about when he finally got his comeuppance. Think about can you imagine what he did? He was thinking that he was justified in doing what he did with Uriah. He thought he was just, and then when Nathan tells him, can you imagine the realization of that? You know, can you imagine him thinking, what if I was the shepherd boy looking at King David right now? Could I have ever imagined as a shepherd boy that the king would murder somebody to take his wife?
Wow.
Oh, wow. I know. You think about that. Well, so
it shows you, though, how low we can go.
That is exactly the point that I was making. The next time somebody tells me, well, we're basically good people at heart. Oh, no, we're not. Oh, no, we're not. This was a man after God's own heart. This was a man who was absolutely tied into God, and he still did it. He still murdered somebody. He had somebody murdered so he could take his wife. How could he have thought that that was justifiable? But he did, and he did it, okay? Well, all right, so back to Robert Downey and Mel Gibson. Mel Gibson had all sorts of problems. He was basically ostracized by the industry for many years, and Robert Downey Jr. was getting an award. And the person who presented him the award was Mel Gibson, at Robert Downey Jr.'s request. And Mel was standing off in the background. They had this great shot. Mel was standing off stage listening to Robert Downey Jr. And Robert Downey Jr. gives this wonderful, wonderful speech. I'm gonna wreck it if I try to approximate it, but here's basically what he was saying. Look, we all have terrible things that happen to us in our lives. We all go through really, really awful times. As all of you know, and if you know anything about Robert Downey Jr.'s history, I was down at rock bottom. I could not get off of drugs.
I remember that.
I could not. Remember, he went to court.
Yeah.
He kept going to court and getting arrested over and over and over again. And the judge finally said, there's nothing we can do for you. Let him go and kill himself with drugs. Don't arrest him anymore. Don't bring this guy back into my courtroom. He let him go that way. And he said, when I was there, you know who was there for me? Mel Gibson.
Whoa.
He took me in to his house.
Whoa.
He said, you can stay here as long as you need. We talked. We had all sorts of stuff happening. I was able to get cleaned up. He said, Robert, it won't last. You're still going to try to fall. You're going to try to fall. He said, what you need to understand is you're going through a terrible, terrible thing. You're walking through cactus. And he said, here's what you need to do. Embrace the cactus. You won't get through it until you embrace it. Embrace the cactus. Don't run from hard times. Embrace hard times. And call on a greater power than you are to help you through it. Because Mel is a very devout Catholic, okay? So he said that. He told him that. And he said, and I did it. I embraced the cactus. And he said, Mel never asked for anything. He never wanted anything from me except one thing. Sooner or later, he said, in your life, once you get through all of this, you're going to find somebody else who needs it. Pass it on. Pass it on to them. Pass on what I'm telling you to them. Give them the opportunity. And he said, now, I'm standing here in front of the industry that has ostracized him. Can't we take him back? I'm asking you to pass it on to Mel.
Whoa,
can we bring him back? Whoa. Please, can we bring him back?
That's what God did for David.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah. This is why I look at that life and I go, this is amazing stuff. When you see this, it was a marvelously eloquent speech that Robert Downey Jr. gives on behalf of his friend Mel Gibson, who was down and out and ostracized by the industry, but who kept Robert Downey Jr. when he was down and out, took him in, kept him, helped him to get clean, helped him to get back on his feet. That's what we do. This is what we do. This is what we do. Okay? Are you a Christian? This is what we do. This is what we do. And if you don't want to do it anyway. Those are my two big things these days. This is what I tell everybody. This is what we do. I may have told this story before. I'm going to tell it again really quickly. I was on a plane. I was coming back. I may have been coming back from this. I don't remember the last guild or whatever, but I was coming back from someplace and I was tired and I was sitting in my seat. And I always get the aisle seat because I like to watch people as they bang me with their suitcases going down the center aisle. So I'm going down. I'm watching, and this smallish woman. She was a petite woman, and she was coming in with her suitcase. And the first thing you think is, why did you check that thing? Why are you schlepping that thing down the aisle for? Okay, but she's doing it. She's carrying her. She's got her suitcase in front of her, and then she sees, oh, here's her seat, and it's the seat ahead of mine. Mm-hmm. And she opens the luggage bin. Okay, there it is, and she's trying to get her suitcase, her big old suitcase, up into the luggage bin, and I was just about to help her when a big, huge, strapping guy behind her says, "Let me help you with that." Picks it up basically with one hand, puts it in there, and boom, right? And she says, "Thank you," and she sits down. What I didn't see was when the woman sat down, I didn't see that in between the woman and the big strapping man was a child. It was the son of the big strapping man, and as they passed by, the child said, "That was very nice of you, Dad." And the dad said, "This is what we do."
Aww.
This is what we do.
And I said, "That's a good father."
There you go.
That's a good father. Oh, man, this is what we do.
This is
what we do.
So good.
Man, what a great teaching opportunity that is. And then on top of that was, even when you don't feel like it, even when you don't want to do it, even when you're really tired like we are right now, we're exhausted after a whole week of stuff, even if we don't want to do it anyway. That's what Mother Teresa said. You don't want to love the unlovable? Love them anyway. Do it anyway. Because that's who we are as Christians.
In Proverbs 28, as we bring this to a close, it says, thinking of David and Mel Gibson and Robert Downey Jr., whoever conceals his transgressions will not prosper, but he who confesses and forsakes them will obtain mercy. Blessed is the one who fears the Lord, but who hardens his heart will fall into calamity. Whoever walks in integrity will be delivered, but he who is crooked in his ways will suddenly fall. Whoever works his land will have plenty of bread, but he who follows worthless pursuits will have plenty of poverty. Especially in light of what we've been talking here, is like, how do you pursue this art? And the amount of work in prayer that you said begins in prayer and ends in prayer that it takes to get where God wants us to be. Whoever works his land will have plenty of bread, but he who follows worthless pursuits will have plenty of poverty. And, in the industries of the arts, there's a lot of influence of doing things the world's way, of having to use profanity, obscenity in the ways that the world uses them. And Phil, you had told me a story once where you had the opportunity, as you were just getting started, you had a wife that was pregnant, and you needed the money, and they offered you the job, but it was going to cause you to
compromise myself.
And you didn't, and as a result of that, you ended up working for who?
For Focus on the Family.
And then Adventures Odyssey was created and so forth.
Wow.
Yeah. A faithful man will abound with blessings, but whoever hastens to be rich will not go unpunished. A stingy man hastens after wealth, but does not know that poverty will come upon him. And this, I'll just end here. It says this: a faithful man will abound with blessings. And that's what we need more than anything.
Awesome.
Faithfulness to our great God and Savior, and watch God use the work of our hands to bless those who have need. Thanks so much for joining us, Ben and
Thank you.
Molly.
Thank
Men
you.
and Molly. Thanks so much for joining us, Men and Molly.
Men and Molly.
Thank you, Mark.
The new
Thank
series
you.
from Lamplighter. Men and Molly.
Please
God
don't do
bless. Amen.
You've been listening to Fastened Like Nails, a presentation of Lamplighter Ministries. Our mission is to make ready a people prepared for the Lord by building Christ-like character, one story at a time. To learn more about our family collection of rare books, dramatic audios, or guild programs, visit lamplighter.net. To hear more podcasts, search for Fastened Like Nails wherever you listen to podcasts.
Don't cover your eyes, Rosa. You need to see me jump.
Charlie is a typical boy
Whoa!
with a typical sense of humor.
Ooh, that was great fun.
But one day, his grandfather gives him a choice that's anything but typical.
I need an heir for my estate. And once I die, you will be the master of Grandfield Place.
Follow the adventures of Charlie in Charlie's Choice, the newest drama from the exciting new family radio series. Lamplighter Theatre.
I'll make them proud, yeah.
This'll teach you.
Here's a whip, Charlie. Run! Run! I will grow up to be a strong and good man, just as Mama hoped.
These waves will dash us to pieces on the rocks if we let the current carry us much further.
I'll be a hero for them someday. I will.
I cannot come with you. My work is here.
Don't miss the adventure, the fun, and the drama. Tune in to the next Lamplighter Theatre.